So you want to set up conversions in Google Analytics 4, but you don't want to do that in Google Tag Manager for some reason. Well, you don't have to. It's possible to set up conversions in GA4 without the use of Google Tag Manager. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you do that. I'm going to show you in the first couple of minutes how you do it in just 5 steps so you can get on with your life. But if you stick around, I'll give you some more background information on how exactly it works and why you need to set it up the way I tell you to do. Let's dive in. Welcome to the channel, my name is Leon. This channel exists to help you make better decisions in your daily work using your analytics data. And if you want to become a better decision maker, you can click the subscribe button below to get every new video that I post. And by the way, if you're interested in more setup videos on Google Analytics, you can check out my channel. There's a whole playlist of videos like these. For instance, I've got a video on how you can set up a conversion based on the time that people spend. So if, for instance, if you want to track the users that spend 3 minutes or longer on your site, there's a video on that too. I'll post a link in the video description. So we're inside of GA4 and I'm going to show you how you set up a conversion in just 5 steps. The first step is you need to go into your site and investigate what kind of form do you want to track as a conversion. So there's probably some kind of contact form, newsletter subscription form, a lead form, whatever. There's some kind of form that you want to track as a conversion. For me, it's this contact form. And the first thing that I want to do here is I want to remember what the URL of this form is. So I'm just going to put it in a small notepad. So I'm going to say this is my form. And I'm going to look what happens if I fill out the form. So for instance, I'm going to use this email address as test. I'm going to say test and then I'm going to hit send. And I'm going to look what happens. Yeah, so there is a thank you page after this contact form. So, and this is what's important. The form page, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So if you look closely, my form page is different than my thank you page, and this is needed if you want to track forms as conversions in GA4. And this is the URL that I'm going to need in my next step. So the second step is I need to take that page and make an event based on the thank you page. That sounds complicated, it's really not. Let's go into admin and let's go into events. And in this screen, you'll see all kinds of events. I'm going to create a new event for our conversion. So let's go into create event. You can see I've done this a couple of times already, but you need to go into create to make your new event. So I'm going to just call this contact form example, and you'll note that I'm only using lowercase and underscore characters. This is because it's kind of the default way of writing things in GA4. You do not have to do this. The only thing you need to remember is to stay under 40 characters, but we're still well under that limit. And this is the name that shows up in your report. So you need to pick a name that's really clear, that exactly tells you what's actually being tracked. So I'm tracking a contact form, that's why I'm calling this contact form and then example to differentiate it from my other tests. Here we need to set up some conditions. So we want to track a contact form in case when an event name equals, and this is page view. So whenever somebody views a certain page. Yeah, so we're not tracking it on scroll, we're not tracking it on a download, we're tracking it on a page view. You need to have this line here. I've seen many situations where people forget this and then they double count their conversions. You need to include this line. Second line we need is we don't want to track every page, we want to track a specific page. We want to track the thank you page. And this is the second line. I like to copy this part because the domain, this part can change. Some sites have different versions. For instance, they have a version with www and they have a version without it. So that's why I think it's safer to just go with this part of the URL. And especially if you have some kind of ID, 1, 2, 3, 4, which changes all the time. I just like to go with just the page path. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it here. We're going to say page location, not equals, but contains. It's really important. Page location contains and then the path of your thank you page. This is the safest way of doing this. The following step here is not mandatory, but I recommend it anyway. I'm going to click add modifications, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say contact form example. So I'm going to paste the name and I'm going to say underscore count. Just checking if I'm still under 40 characters. This is 27. So again, you cannot go over 40 characters here. So I just wanted to know for sure. And then as value, I'm going to say 1. You do not see this in many videos. I will show you in a couple of minutes why I do this. It's not mandatory to track conversions, but I recommend it anyway. So you'll do this the same way with your conversion, only you'll choose probably a different name and you'll probably choose a different thank you page. Then I'm gonna hit create. Oh, I forgot one thing. Let's go back into contact form example. This one I want to remember. So the event name that I chose, I'm gonna remember that. Also, I'm gonna remember the parameter that I added. So, because we'll need those two later on. So, second step is done. Third step is we need to, because right now we're gonna track it as a regular event, but we want to track it as a conversion event. I'll explain later what the difference is. We're going through these steps as soon as possible so you can get on with your life. Under conversions, I'm gonna set a new conversion event. This is where I want to enter the name of the conversion that I just entered. So I'm gonna go back into my notes. This is the name of the event that I just added. Contact form example, I'm gonna hit save. So now I'm telling GA4 that the contact form example is not just a regular event, but it's a conversion event. I want it to show up as a conversion in my report. Third step is done. Fourth step. This step again, it's not mandatory, but I really like to do this anyway. So if you're in a hurry, you can skip this step, but otherwise, let me show you why this is such a time saver. Under custom definitions, I'm going into custom metrics and I'm going to create a custom metric and I'm going to call this contact form submissions. And as an event parameter, I'm going to go into my notes. This is the parameter that we added down in the screen. Contact form example count. This is just a standard unit of measurement. I'm gonna say under the description amount of contact form submissions. So this will create a metric that's only about the contact form submissions. This is really useful when you're building your own custom reports or on the homepage. I'll show you that in a minute. I'm gonna click save. That's the fourth step, that's done. The fifth step is really important. Do not skip this. You'll need to test if it's working. It's really annoying if you've set up a conversion, let's say today, and in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're noticing that it didn't really work because you typed in something wrong or there was some kind of error. So we're going under debug view. This is the test mode inside of GA4. To see our own traffic inside this test mode, you need to enable debug mode. And there are several ways to do this. You can use Google Tag Manager, but we're not using that right now. A handy little extension that I like to use is the Google Analytics Debugger. So you can just look it up. You need Google Chrome as your browser to do this. This is the page. You need to add it to your Google Chrome. And then when you've added it in your Google Chrome address bar, under this sign, there will be the Google Analytics Debugger. And I like to pin these extensions. So it's right here in my screen. Let me look. Yeah, here it is. This is the Google Analytics Debugger. If I put my mouse on it, you see that it's off, but if I click, the Google Analytics Debugger is on. And as soon as you enable it, you're telling GA4 that this is a testing session, this is a session for debugging, and this traffic that I'm doing right now with the debug mode enabled will show up here. And this is semi-real time, so it probably takes about a minute or so, but I see a page view showing up here. By the way, if you've enabled internal traffic filters, the traffic here will not show up. You need to maybe route your traffic via a different network or just use a hotspot to bypass internal traffic sources or disable your internal traffic filters. But with me, I do not have internal traffic enabled for my site. So I'm going back into my contact form. I'm gonna fill it in. I have an email address somewhere. Test, and I'm gonna hit send. And now I'm going back into analytics. Oh, I see a conversion session duration 5 minutes coming in. And now I'm gonna wait, is there a conversion event from my contact form? So I see user engagement. Yeah, so there are a couple of duplicates because I use this site a lot when doing my training. So contact form submit is my regular one. But contact forms example, this is the one that we just set up and it's working. And I think it's green flag shows that it's a conversion event and not just a regular event. So these are the 5 steps that you need to take if you want to set up conversions on your site without Google Tag Manager. But where can I find these in my report? Well, the first thing that you need to know is that we made this conversion today, so it will not show up in your report right away. I repeat, it will not show up in your report right away. This is for some people very confusing, but because we've set it up today, it will start tracking today. Well, GA4 needs some time to process the data. If you come back the day after tomorrow, you'll probably see conversions coming in from today in your reports. But again, today you will not see these data showing up in your reports. But if you've set it up, and I've set up my contact form submit a while back, you'll see these in your reports. So for instance, on the home screen, because I've made a custom metric, because I've set up a custom metric, the step that I told you was mandatory, my contact form submissions metric is showing up here. So I have one metric that shows all contact form submissions. Otherwise, if you don't do this, you only have conversions metric, and that shows like the total amount of like all conversions that show up. So that's for convenience, a custom metric, and I've set this up, contact form submits a while back. This is the old one. Again, this shows data because this is the old one, the one that I just made together with you guys is showing 0 conversions because we do not have data yet, because we've only made this today. Then in your reports, if you want to see how many conversions you have, you go under engagement and then conversions. This is somehow still in Dutch, lifecycle, engagement, conversions. This shows a list of all the active conversions on your site. Again, our new conversion is not showing up here because we do not have data yet. So if I return to these reports, maybe in a couple of days or a week, I will see data coming in into this report under the name contact form example, the one that I chose. As you can see, the old conversions that were still here, they do have some data, and this is a good example of how that would look. This is just a total amount of conversions. But if you want to see where are these conversions coming from, you can look under acquisition, traffic acquisition. And then in this report, you will find in not the last column, but the one before that, in the drop-down menu, you will find your conversion. So I've set up contact form example today. If you look at this in a week or in a month, you'll see all the conversions from today up to that point. And then you'll see what channel actually is responsible for driving that conversion here. So you'll find this like in almost every report. Again, if you look under tag details, you'll see the browsers. Here you have a similar conversions column. You can use the drop down and select the conversion that you want here to analyze it. So one question that I get all the time in my trainings is, why do we need to set up a conversion event? If we track it as an event, isn't that just enough? If you remember, in the 5 steps, we first made a new event, and then after that we enabled that event as a conversion. So it wasn't just a regular event, but it's a conversion event. But what's the difference between a regular event and a conversion event? Well, we're making this into a conversion event to differentiate between the whole group of just events that there are, because there's a lot of things being tracked on this site. For instance, just the regular page views, the file downloads, the scrolls. There are a lot of interactions. We want to differentiate between all these small interactions that we track and the main goals that we have on our site. And that's the reason why we want to make our contact form event into a conversion event. So we can differentiate, because it's a main goal. We want people to contact us via our site. That's an important thing that we want to track. And that's why we want to differentiate between it. So the second reason why we want to make our contact form event into a conversion event is because other programs, other platforms that are linked to GA4 will pick up the conversion events. So for instance, if you link Google Ads, you'll probably want to import the Google Analytics 4 conversions from Google Analytics. To do that, you need to have it as a conversion event, not a regular event. And the third reason, it's maybe a little bit more specific, but if you want to use conversion attribution modeling in GA4, you'll need to set it up as a conversion event and not as a regular event. So another question that you might have if you see me work in GA4 setting up conversions without Google Tag Manager is, why would you need Google Tag Manager anyway? Well, there are a couple of reasons. The first reason is, if you have multiple platforms, if you're tracking not only GA4, but you're tracking, for instance, Facebook ads, you're tracking Google ads, you're tracking Pinterest or TikTok ads. So you have multiple platforms. It's way easier to manage that from Google Tag Manager. So if you have multiple platforms and you're collecting data, so for instance, this contact form conversion is probably not only relevant in GA4, but it's also relevant for those other platforms. It's much more convenient to do that from Google Tag Manager, because you need just one piece of code on your site to distribute the data into all those different platforms, and doing this in line with all the legislation that there is around privacy. So for instance, GA4 you will probably track before consent depending on the location, but all the ad platforms you will track after consent. Those things are really easy to do in Google Tag Manager. So the second reason why you would want to use Google Tag Manager is if you have a more complicated setup. For instance, if you have an e-commerce store and you want to track all the recommended e-commerce events in GA4, you'll probably want to use Google Tag Manager, because setting that up hard-coded is kind of difficult. And again, if you want to use that information and distribute it to different platforms like Facebook ads, Pinterest ads, that's more convenient to do in Google Tag Manager. The third reason why you would want to use Google Tag Manager is because finding workarounds is a lot easier. There are scenarios where your thank you page doesn't work, and it happens more than you think. So one solution would be to go back to the developer of your site and ask, hey, can you add a thank you page after this form? Or if you have a WordPress site, it's probably very easy to do that over there. But there are situations where you do not have the option of creating your own thank you page, because there are different limitations either on the side of your site or on the side of your organization. Then Google Tag Manager is really convenient, because there are probably 3 to 4 different ways on how you can set up conversions without using a thank you page. But then you would need Google Tag Manager to do that. By the way, if you're interested in a video about how to do that, please comment below, because it's somewhere on my list and I would really like to know if that would be of interest. So that's it for today. I hope this video was clear. I hope it was helpful. Please, if you have any questions, please leave them down below this video in the comments. I love to hear from you. Also, if you like what I'm doing with the channel, helping you become a better decision maker based on your analytics, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. That really helps me get this channel off the ground. Don't forget to check the playlist on other setup videos. I know you'll like those as well. Well, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and see you in the next video. Goodbye.